Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El Rome.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, the State of Israel sent official congratulations to Donald Trump on his election as the 45th President of the United States. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu repeated his conviction that the powerful alliance shared by Washington and Jerusalem will not only remain intact, but will be further strengthened. The Israeli premier stressed that the Jewish nation values its relationship with the U.S. above all others by poignantly saying, "Thus it has been, and thus it will continue." Israelis are optimistic that Trump will stay true to his campaign promise to implement the new Republican platform, which has been described as the most pro-Israel in American history.
The Islamic State did its best to disrupt the American balloting by demanding that Muslim citizens boycott the so-called pagan festival of U.S. democracy. The call was published in the Islamist terrorist organization's Al-Hayat magazine, and it went on to demand that the Christian crusaders who did cast votes should have their blood spilled, even more than the cross-wearing soldiers who fight ISIS. Verses from the Quran were cited, branding any Muslims who went to the polls as apostates deserving of death. The piece also blasted former President Bill Clinton and both Bush administrations for interfering with Muslim interests, while asserting that either Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton would undoubtedly do the same because of both candidates' stated vows to battle the Islamic State, as well as their declared support of Israel. And in related news, vigilance by U.S. intelligence agencies paid off on Election Day. Security personnel were on high alert as Americans exercised their democratic rights amid intelligence warnings that the Al-Qaeda terror group would try to launch attacks at the polling stations in New York, Texas, and Virginia.
Jerusalem has formally rejected an invitation from Paris to take part in a Middle East peace conference in the French capital later this year. Israel's acting national security advisor, Jacob Nagel, and senior envoy, Itzhak Molcho, informed French envoy Pierre Vaimont of the decision at a meeting in Jerusalem. The Jewish state views such events as serving only to provide a one-sided platform for Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas to grandstand and continue evading direct negotiations with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Paris announced plans to forge ahead with the conference despite the objections from Jerusalem. The French diplomat also met with PA leader Abbas in Ramallah, where the initiative was greeted with enthusiasm.
Meanwhile, the Palestinian Authority has apparently been emboldened by UNESCO's recent denial of Jewish historical ties to Jerusalem, and it's now making steps towards seeking possession of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Ramallah has already submitted an informal appeal with a subcommittee at the UN Cultural Agency that pursues the return of heritage items to countries of origin. The Palestinians insist that the ancient parchments belong to them because the artifacts were found on land that they claim for their future state. Historians and scholars say that the scrolls were written by members of a Jewish sect known as the Essenes, who lived during the Second Temple era. The majority are inscribed in Hebrew, while a few others are in ancient Greek or the Aramaic language that was spoken by Jesus that evolved during the first century. The manuscripts are the earliest copies of the Hebrew Bible ever found and the oldest written evidence of the Jewish and Christian roots in the Holy Land. Israel's UNESCO envoy, Carmel Shammah-Hakohen, lambasted this latest Palestinian scheme as yet another provocative and audacious attempt to rewrite history by removing factual and weighty archaeological evidence of the presence of the Jewish people in the land of Israel.
No matter how hard Israel's enemies try to suppress history, archaeological evidence of the Jewish and Christian roots in Jerusalem just keeps coming to light. A monumental discovery has been unveiled by the Israel Antiquities authorities, a papyrus bearing the earliest Hebrew reference to the Holy City outside the Bible. This phenomenal text is a little more than 4 inches long and 1 inch wide, and apparently it is an ancient delivery slip. It reads, "From the female servant of the king of Naharata near Jericho, 2 wineskins to Jerusalem." Scientists said that according to carbon analysis, the note originated in the 7th century before the Common Era. That means the fragment is several hundred years older than the Dead Sea Scrolls. The ancient Hebrew text was written during the First Temple period, when Jerusalem was the capital city of the Kingdom of Judea. Investigators with the Israel Antiquities authorities managed to recover the precious artifact, which had been plundered from a cave in the Judean desert by thieves.
The Jewish state has officially marked the very first Aliyah Day, designated on the Hebrew calendar, to honor the nation's immigrant population. The word Aliyah means ascension. In accordance with Judaism, one's soul is elevated by coming to live in the Holy Land, as well as each time one makes a visit to Jerusalem. The holiday was marked by special events at the Knesset, a special cabinet session, and events at the president's residence. Other activities were held by schools, the army, and the police force. Prime Minister Netanyahu praised the many different communities for their significant contributions to Israel, as well as for helping assist in diplomatic relations with the countries of their births. The Israeli leader said Aliyah is the foundation of the state of the Jews and the fulfillment of the biblical prophecy that the Jewish people will return and rebuild their ancestral homeland.
American celebrities turned out in full force at a gala fundraising event for the Israeli army. The evening was sponsored by the Friends of the Israel Defense Forces. The group was founded originally by Holocaust survivors. It works to support educational, cultural, and recreational programs and facilities for the young men and women who defend the Jewish homeland, as well as the families of fallen soldiers and wounded veterans. Stars including Robert De Niro, Larry King, Julie Bowen, Gerard Butler, and Arnold Schwarzenegger came out to demonstrate their solidarity with the Israeli military at the Beverly Hilton Hotel in Los Angeles. The celebrities did more than just mingle and snap selfies with the troops. They also raised a record $38 million for the IDF.
A brand new Israeli device is hoping to reinforce one of the oldest Jewish traditions, which is the emphasis on family unity. A recent report from the Highlight Company that designs educational products found out that 62% of children complain that their parents don't listen well because they say that they're too distracted, particularly by cell phones. Enter the pause box. By mutual consent, everyone agrees to place all of their electronic devices in this attractive receptacle, which is capable of blocking Wi-Fi and all incoming calls, text messages, or email. Co-founder Yuval Lazy says that it operates on the out-of-sight, out-of-mind principle to help your loved ones refocus their attention on one another during family occasions instead of sneaking peeks at their Blackberries or smartphones.
Israel, the light unto the nations, today faces attack from more than just rockets and terrorism. Calls to boycott, sanction, and divest from Israel, known as BDS, are a form of economic warfare that you can help to prevent. The Israel Allies Foundation has launched a public service campaign called Defeat BDS, offering educational tools and other resources that you can use to stand with Israel and help make a difference. Just visit the easy-to-use website at www.defeatbds.org.
And that concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host Josh Reinstein, and we're here on a beautiful sunny day in Jerusalem on our rooftop studio. My guest today is Andras Patkai. He's the European Director of the Israel Allies Foundation. Andras, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Josh.
Tell us a little about what is the Israel Allies Foundation.
The Israel Allies Foundation is a network of parliamentarians who are raising awareness about why it is so important to stand on the side of Israel and why it is important strategically and of mutual benefit to countries to support Israel and stand up for the rights of the Jewish people as they are returning to the land of Israel after 2,000 years of exile, and as the restoration of Israel as a state is taking place in front of our eyes, and how this is implemented in a very real, very political environment.
You know, we're seeing the rise of radical Islam in Europe, and it seems to us like being the European director of a pro-Israel foundation is a very hard job in Europe today. Are we seeing any positive signs of support from Europe?
It's a challenging situation in Europe today. as Europe is looking for its identity in respect to its Jewish roots, because one of the foundations of the Judeo-Christian civilization that we enjoy in Europe is Judaism. Also Christianity and the Greek and Roman values. But at this time there is a change because of the security situation in Europe, and there's more emphasis on the lessons that can be learned from the State of Israel in modern day societies who are trying to establish security for the populations and at the same time to protect and convey the values of this Judeo-Christian civilization.
We got a shocking reminder of the anti-Semitic tendencies of Europe just recently when the European Union decided to implement labeling on products from Jerusalem, the Golan Heights, and Judea and Samaria. How could it be possible in the 21st century that the European Union would label Jewish products once again?
It seems that certain leaders in Europe have a moral superiority and they want to lecture certain nations, among them the Jewish people, about how to make peace, and they're trying to exercise this pressure of economic dependence and force them to do things and evaluate the situation in a different way. But we believe that it is best if parties sit down to the negotiating table together and discuss these things among themselves without external artificial pressures. And the example that Israel can give to Europe is just as much valid as the examples that the Jewish people can take from any European integration, which is still in the making and is much newer than the thousands of years of Jewish history that which we have witnessed and which have also made Europe great.
We just witnessed last summer the Brexit, England leaving the EU. Does this give some hope that England will start becoming more pro-Israel in their stance, maybe reject the labeling?
Well, it's certainly a new situation where the UK is no longer bound by European external policy, which is a question that is challenged by other countries as well in the European Union, and it is still not a game that is finished. It is still in the playing, and we believe that there's a lot of influence that members of parliament and decision makers can exercise today on the decision-making process, and we believe that the UK will also be able to look at the whole situation in a more global way.
You know, we see that there's kind of a split in Europe today. A lot of anti-Israel are coming out of Western Europe, but a lot of pro-Israel sentiment coming out of Eastern Europe. Why do you think the divergence in policy?
The Eastern Europeans have understood what it is like to be under the influence of an empire for decades, and they see that there are tendencies in the European Union, if they don't exercise their own influence as small nations enough, that the European Union can also dominate their foreign policy, and this will affect their relationship with Israel because they will not be independent in making decisions. And this is why there is a very strong emphasis on national identity in the Eastern European countries. And this is an example that is also seen in Israel, and this is where we find the parallel, because Israel emphasizes that it's a Jewish state and a democratic state. National identity is just as important as democracy, and it's the same in Europe today, that national identity is becoming more of a subject.
Andres, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
It's important to see Israel as a strong nation which not only builds strong security with strong fences and borders, but also which exercises power across the borders and across the fences in investing in the society and blessing the society that's outside the fence and outside the borders. And this is something that we can celebrate in Israel today.
Thank you, Andras, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Shalom and welcome to the Return to Zion with Karen Hayesod. I'm Eliezer Moody Sandberg, World Chairman of Keren HaYesod United Israel Appeal, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Today, you will witness the fulfillment of biblical prophecy through the gathering of the exiles. God bless you from Jerusalem.
Those who dreamed about the Jewish state, those who survived the Holocaust and found in Israel the anchor, the security, those who wrought the historical miracle and against all odds established a state, those who stepped into the breach and defended the young Jewish state, so many of them paid with their lives, those who arrived in the homeland to their new home, those who propelled Israel forward step after step, those who stand at the technological vanguard, and the loyal partners who ensure the continuation of the Zionist enterprise. All those are Keren HaYesod, because Keren HaYesod is Eretz Israel. The return of an ancient people to their biblical homeland, a nation whose values inspired mankind, only to endure centuries of suffering. The ultimate tale of redemption from the ashes of destruction. This remarkable story is the story of the State of Israel. It is also the story of Keren HaYesod. Thanks to the dedication of Keren HaYesod supporters, huge resources were available to make the State of Israel a reality. Founded in 1920, Keren HaYesod galvanized Jewish donors across the world in a unified effort to develop the infrastructure of the first sovereign Jewish state in 2,000 years.
אנו מכריזים בזאת על הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל. היא מדינת ישראל.
By the time the State of Israel was born in 1948, Keren HaYesod's funds had been the driving force behind the establishment of over 900 communities in the Jewish homeland. Its donors helped found many of the iconic institutions we know today, including the Hebrew University and Israel's Philharmonic Orchestra, ensuring that, as Zechariah envisioned, Jerusalem's streets would once more be filled with boys and girls at play. Keren HaYesod's supporters also helped rescue tens of thousands of desperate Jews fleeing a burning Europe, bringing them to the sanctuary of the land of Israel. Ezekiel's prophecy of bringing dry bones to life had been fulfilled. Throughout the decades, Keren HaYesod has been there for Jewish people coming home. In the 1950s, by financing the creation of still vibrant cities, Eilat and Sderot, bringing to life Ben-Gurion's vision of making the Negev desert bloom. In the 1960s and 70s, raising funds and providing a lifeline for the country's development during wartime. And at the close of the century, helping to bring immigrants from the four corners of the earth in a modern-day exodus, rescuing tens of thousands of Jews from Ethiopia and 1 million Jews from the former Soviet Union, delivering them from danger and distress. To this day, Keren HaYesod's activists continue their mission of aliyah and absorption. Last year, more than 31,000 Jews were helped to make their lives in the land of their ancestors. Keren HaYesod remains at the heart of Israel's development, as Israel's barren land has been transformed into a hub of creativity, innovation, and success. Keren HaYesod supporters have been there every step of the way. They have empowered 2,000 pioneering young Israelis to reinvigorate 65 distressed communities. All of this has been achieved through Keren HaYesod's ongoing efforts to build unbreakable bonds with Israel among Jews in the diaspora, Christians, and people of faith from across the world. In the book of Jeremiah, the Lord says, "There is a hope for your future. Your children will return to their borders." Every day, Keren HaYesod supporters are making this vision a reality. Thanks to Keren HaYesod, the State of Israel continues to grow from strength to strength.
Come join Keren HaYesod in fulfilling biblical prophecy. Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
The attempt to delegitimize Israel, to boycott and sanction Israel, perhaps presents the greatest threat this country has ever faced. The attempts to destroy the Jewish state began on our first day of existence, May 14th, 1948, when Arab armies invaded this country. And that threat, the conventional Arab threat, continued until 1973, when the Syrian and Egyptian armies attacked us with overwhelming strength, and the war ended with Israeli guns within range of Cairo and Damascus. That convinced the Arabs, our enemies, that they could not defeat us by conventional means. And virtually at the same time, in the early 70s, began the next phase of threats, the Arab terror threat, the Munich massacre, the Lod massacre, the Ma'alot and Kiryat Shmona massacres. And that threat continued to 2005, when Israel defeated terror, what was known as the Second Intifada. We defeated it and achieved perhaps our greatest victory on the field of battle. And then, literally at the same time, 2005, 2006, began the third and most dangerous phase. That is the attempts by our enemies to deny us the right to defend ourselves and to deny us the right to exist as a sovereign Jewish state. That battle takes place not in Sinai or on the Golan Heights or even in Jerusalem. It takes place in the media. It takes place in the various organizations of the United Nations and in international criminal courts, where the attempt is to first brand us in the media as war criminals and then to have us sanctioned and boycotted as war criminals. The battle takes place on American campuses and in campuses throughout Western Europe, where our enemies are trying to convince an entire young generation that Israel has no right to exist whatsoever, that we are an apartheid state. Israel must gather all of its strength to fight against this threat. We must push back against delegitimization the way we fought back the Arab armies from 1948 to 1973, the way we defeated terror through the 70s into 2005. We will gather together with our friends around the world and defeat delegitimization. We'll uphold Israel's right to defend ourselves and our right to exist as a sovereign and independent Jewish state in our homeland.
Please stay tuned for the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
We love the people of Israel, and we want to show that love through social projects that help build a stronger Israel. We're passionate about offering life-changing opportunities for the disadvantaged, youth at risk, new immigrants, and minorities that help them step into a brighter future. We desire to make a difference throughout the mosaic that is Israeli society. We call this ICEJ Aid.
Christians come to help the Jewish people. It's a dream, you know? How could it be? The Christian people come to help the Jewish people, the state of Israel. For me, it's really unimaginable.
ICEJ Aid helps families break out of the cycle of poverty through educational programs such as vocational training and mentoring towards employment, as well as offering practical aid where needed most. We also support Holocaust survivors in the last years of their life. The survivors enjoy emotional and physical support in an assisted living facility where their needs are met, and they have a community of loving staff and volunteers surrounding them.
אנחנו לעת זקנה, קשה לנו לתפקד בבית, וזה ארגון בעזרת השגרירות הנוצרית, שאני יודע שהם תומכים בנו ותומכים יפה.
Pnina from Christian Embassy appeared in our life with a lot of food and what is much more important, with their love and with their willing to support.
Together with our Israeli friends, we are partnering with the God of Israel, who promised through the prophet Jeremiah, "For I will set my eyes on them for good. I will bring them back to this land. I will build them and not tear them down. I will plant them and not uproot them."
Christians around the world, they are our best friends. And Christians and Jews, We belong together.
Thank you to the Christian Embassy and Christian around the world, your support and partnership helping us to change life every day.
This aid wouldn't be possible without your help. Show the people of Israel God's love today and let her know that she's not alone. Become a partner by giving at icej.org/aid.
Experience the heart of Israel and find a renewed vision for your ministry and calling. Refresh your spirit with the Envision Pastors and Leaders Conference. Join us January 23rd through the 26th for an outpouring of knowledge and insight. Here's why you do not want to miss this conference.
I want to encourage every believer who loves God, loves the God of Israel, and loves Israel to consider being a part of Envision Conference. It's a time where you can hear from local believers, both Jewish believers and Arab, to talk about what God is doing in the land of Israel and the miracles that are happening now and the miracles to come. So would you consider being a part of this?
You'll have the opportunity to visit the Prime Minister's office and hear exclusive briefings from prominent Israeli Knesset members.
Well, if you've never been to Envision, you know there's so many blanks will be filled in your walk with God, and you'll get a new understanding, a new perspective of Israel and the purposes of God for our generation.
Honor the memory of lives lost in a special Holocaust remembrance ceremony at Yad Vashem.
One of the benefits of coming is the networking with like-minded individuals, a lot of young leaders in our UK gathering who are just fun to be with.
Hey, I was at Envision this year and you should come. It will enhance your life, enhance your ministry, and enhance your calling.
Visit envision.icej.org for more information.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.